We are back with another episode of the Challenge Insiders, doing a recap for the Challenge All-Stars, episode 5 this time, and I've got Chantal here with me again. Chantal, this is my favorite time of the week. I get to talk to you about my guilty pleasure of the Challenge All-Stars, and I always love hearing your takes on these episodes. What did you think of episode 5 as an overall?
Come
you had to rate it.
It's so good. Like, I don't know if I say it all the time. Is it just nostalgia? And is it because I've grown up with these people? I don't know what it is, but I'm always just sitting there smiling and just soaking it all in. I'm like, I want another episode. I'm like, oh, I don't want to wait for another episode. I want to binge watch this one right now. So loved it.
It's torturous, right? It's torturous having to wait another week. And it's funny because, I come into these recaps knowing that whatever rating I'm going to give it, Chantal's going to give it like 2 points above me because she's got the nostalgia factor coming into it as well. And for me, this was the best episode so far this season. I really enjoyed this one.
It was good. It had everything that you could want in it. It had a little bit of the love story. It had like an underdog, but then not an underdog. And it had like old versus young and alliance. Like, it had everything that you kind of want in a show. On top of it, a really damn good elimination. So it's, it was an excellent episode. Absolutely.
A massive twist at the end, that was awesome to see. So we'll get into that. We won't talk about it yet because that's something we'll leave for the elimination part of the show. But we see here in the beginning of this episode, everybody goes back to the house. Beth feels a little bit guilty, like she potentially intimidated Arissa not to compete against her, and everybody tells her, "Hey, relax. It's definitely not you who intimidated her. This happens." Derek, I think it was Darrell, says this happens in every season. You get certain people just quitting and leaving the show. And just mentally getting in their own heads. And, there's a couple of interesting comments here. I think Yacella's one is quite interesting, and she says that now the political game is really going to start and we're going to see people gunning after each other and relationships are not going to matter. What did you think about this whole thing with Beth feeling guilty? It was a little bit weird for me, like for her to feel guilty that Arissa left the way that she did.
I think it's a little bit of survivor's guilt. Like if you're in a car accident and somebody doesn't make it, but you do, there's a little bit like, why me? Like, why did this have to happen? I think there's a little bit of that. I feel like there's a little bit of, she didn't earn her being there still. So she just is kind of like, oh, it doesn't feel good that like I'm coming back into the house here because like I didn't work hard, win and overtake the other person. It's like she kind of left in an icky way. So she didn't really get a completion story to like going into the elimination, coming out and winning. Instead, it was like, oh, somebody left really upset. And like, I hope she didn't feel upset with me because like I didn't really have anything to, it wasn't like a big plot against you. It's like, I just thought I could beat you maybe. And, Arissa kind of took it the wrong way, or took it really quite harshly, we'll say. So I think it's just the fact that she didn't get to complete her little story there. It just kind of feels a little bit unfinished business, and then a lot of guilt about like how she went out.
Yeah, 100%. Now, we do see here that Beth and Cyrus, they're talking up in the room there, and Beth says to Cyrus, like, listen, I can't see myself doing this game without you, which obviously there's going to be some poetic justice to this whole thing happening here early on in the game with them talking. And a lot of this, sort of in this episode, it came to mind for me, like I've been saying the whole time, like I just don't feel good about this Beth and Cyrus sort of situation and where that's going to lead to in the long run, because we don't see Nehemiah and Jimmy sort of their view in regards to where these guys are in their alliance. But I thought it was going to be, Nehemiah or Jimmy is going to backstab someone like Beth. But obviously my read was right on the edit not being a good one for them so far, but it was right for the wrong reasons.
For sure. I mean, for this particular episode, though, I wrote down, I'm like, oh, it's the story of Cyrus. It's the story of Beth. There's going to be something with their saga that's going to be concluding tonight. Like, that's 100%. I was like, it's all about them. They're probably going to be broken up this evening. So I definitely agree that the edit has been telecasting a little bit more than like I was giving it credit for. But yeah, and I guess you're right, though, that the fact that they weren't showing them that much, or they were showing them a lot, whatever it wasn't actually indicative of whether they're going to make it long term or not.
I'm finding Yeah, I'm finding this challenge edit really predictable for me at the moment in regards to what's going to happen. Because obviously, right in the next section, we go into Derek trying to climb the front. He's trying to climb this pillar in the front of the house, and then Alton comes and he does the climbing on the pillar, and he's like, "Everybody's watching me. I'm not afraid to go on against anyone. I don't need to hide the fact that I'm a physical beast and all that kind of thing." So again, you kind of read into this that okay, it looks like it could be Cyrus. It looks like it may be Alton as well here. These are the two people that they're sort of telling the story, but I don't blame them for the edit being this predictable because they only have 40 something minutes to do these episodes compared to the normal season that, you can have a runtime of nearly an hour, so they have to make the story something that's consistent and fluent and something that makes sense to the casual viewer out there that's going to watch the show.
And I think they must be kind of going back to their roots, because before it used to be like 20-minute episodes, so they used to have to just tell the story. What's happening in this episode? There's no sneaky misdirects or whatnot. Like, it's just like, who's going to be involved in this episode? Let's show them. And so I think they're kind of going back to that format and not wasting time like trying to show other things to make you think that it might go in another direction.
Yeah. Now, the other really interesting thing here before we go into the challenge is that Yosela says that she was on the Gauntlet 2 with Alton, but she doesn't even remember him. And for her, it's like she's getting to know Alton right from the beginning again, basically. And obviously throughout this whole episode, we're going to see that romance sort of blossom between them and the attraction being there between those two people. So I take it these two didn't really, because obviously I don't have the history of the Gauntlet 2, but I take it they never really interacted on the previous seasons that they were in.
I'm assuming, I'm not 100%, but I think that maybe he was still in a relationship with Irulan and they were living together. So a lot of times when people get into partnership that's really serious, like they don't allow anybody to flirt with that. Like it's just kind of like, okay, I'm an impenetrable wall here. Like I have my eye on my girl and that's it. I'm not like kind of looking elsewhere. So I think that that's probably what happened, is that he wasn't available. And so he wasn't kind of exuding being available. That's my guess.
Now, the thing that sort of stood out to me here is Alton saying, at heart, he's still just a kid. He just wants to climb things and have fun. And I can so relate to that because, here I am. I'm in my 30s now. I still love going out and doing all these crazy obstacle course races, hanging off things. If I go back, home to South Africa, I remember growing up in South Africa, we used to climb trees, build tree houses. I'll still go climb trees over there with my nephews and stuff. I just so relate to him just still being a kid, because at the end of the day, we grow older, but we are still who we are, 10, 15, 20 years ago, really, at heart.
And so I think that that's actually why we end up growing older, is that we stop doing the things that made us feel like a kid. We end up sitting at a computer or like at a desk for longer periods of time instead of going out and keeping that body moving and keep yourself agile and limber and even using your mind to which branch am I going to pull to grab onto to pull myself up on? You know what I mean? So we're not using those same kind of energies. And so that's probably why we get kind of old, we get kind of stiff. And we kind of deteriorate because we're not doing the stuff we did when we were kids, literally.
100%. I mean, again, I know the challenge is trying to see themselves as a sport now, kind of, I know it's one of the things you don't really like about the challenge, but when you look at it this way, I'm not a massive American football fan. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but I obviously know who Tom Brady is, right? I mean, everybody knows who Tom Brady is, and he's in his 40s and he's still competing at that level, and then you get someone like a CT and the challenge, who's in his 40s, who still is probably, and even in his right, he's probably even doing better than what he did when he was younger. So it shows you that if you continue to do some of these things, if you continue to put your mind at it and look after yourself physically, you don't need to be like a physical beast going out there running 20 kilometers or however much miles that is every single day. But as long as you do some of these things, like you said, when you were younger, you will still keep that physique. And obviously Alton, you can just see he is still a well-oiled machine. I mean, he is chiseled. And it's going to be even more shocking when we go into the actual challenge, because in the challenge, we see him gas out. And again, I was thinking to myself, does this give people a different perspective on Paulie when he gassed out in the challenge that Paulie did a couple of seasons ago? Because Paulie is super fit as well, similar to Alton, but it shows you that, fitness is not universal. If you're really good at a specific thing, like you're really good at climbing, or you, like for instance, Paulie, I know the way that he trained up until that season, he was a football player. So a lot of it is about agility and being explosive. So he had that, but he maybe didn't have the endurance aspect of it down as he should have. And that's one of the things I love about the challenge, because the challenge tests you not just on physical ability, it tests you on mental ability, it tests you on endurance, so many different things. And I feel like, Elton, you could look at Elton and say, what's wrong with him? It just might be that endurance challenge wasn't his strong suit. But I do think there's a few other things why he might have struggled in that challenge. But then again, you look at Cyrus, who's in his 50s, and Cyrus is doing extremely well. So I could give Elton the same excuses that I would have given Cyrus, but Cyrus actually performed really well in that challenge.
Well, I have to say that, like, some people like have to actually train to be capable of doing long distance running and exerting like that much energy at once. For instance, I don't think I told you the story, but when I was living in Vancouver, people like to run up and down some of the mountains. And so I had a group of friends that were like, let's go climb the Chief. And I was like, I don't really want to climb the Chief. They're like, let's just do it. It's going to be so fun. It's so worth it at the top. I'm like, okay. And it's basically like just rock stairs all the way up, like for 2 hours. You're just going up rock stairs. And like there's some ropes and there's some ladder type things that are put in, but like you're actually climbing this mountain. And I remember like we're just going up in the beginning and it had like a little sign. It says, you're a quarter of the way there. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like I was winded. Like people like were like, come on, Chantel. I'm like, don't talk to me. Like I really had to focus to make myself not want to let myself gas out, like to actually push through it. And so I think that if you're not used to getting to that mental break where you can go past it, that it will allow you to go for a lot longer, I can see you gassing out for sure. Like I could have easily quit if people were kept on like saying that to me. I'd be like, shut up, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I think it was I could have been a little bit of a mind thing, a mental thing of like getting over that hump of like exhaustion, and then you can pretty much run forever,
100%. Now, the other two people here that we see struggling specifically in that portion of the challenge where they're going up and they've got the logs, and the excuse I was going to give Elton coming into this is like, okay, what excuse can I give Elton? Because I like him. I want to give him an excuse for why he didn't do well in this challenge. Would have been that, when you're carrying those heavy logs, you've got people of all different size and shapes and carrying it. So the people who are the tallest are going to carry most of the brunt. So if you're carrying most of the brunt, like some of the girls who are not as tall, they might not take as much of that. But I mean, Cyrus, we learned that he's got a sore ankle, which when I learned he had a sore ankle going into the challenge, already I was thinking he's probably going to lose the elimination. We're already being told the story here as to why he's not. I can't help that my mind works in that way. I've seen too many of these reality TV shows to sort of like put the plot lines together. But I was thinking, okay, cool. Now we know why he's not going to win it. But he goes into the challenge with a sore ankle and he's still beasts it out, like Jimmy says, like she had so much respect for Cyrus still because he's taller than everybody else. And you've got to give credit where credit is due. Cyrus is a badass.
Absolutely, he's a badass. But okay, I did watch a little bit of the after show. I haven't watched the whole thing yet, but one thing that they did talk about was the fact that Elton's shoes were either not his or the wrong shoes, or they were too small. And so I can definitely understand also not having the right footwear to be able to do that type of terrain could really offset like how much energy you're exerting in certain ways. They tell you, like, you want running shoes, you've got to put on running shoes, he's like, I could have done a better job if I was still wearing my cowboy boots. And so he definitely was attesting. And we did see a scene after. It makes sense now. Hisela was massaging his feet. And I think that had to do with the shoes that he was wearing that were too small that affected his performance in that challenge.
Okay, that's great insights to know, because I mean, if you're if you look at this challenge as a whole, it's a mini final, right? So it had this endurance aspect. I don't think they told us I can't remember how long the whole course was, but obviously it would have been quite a distance that they would have had to go, So if you're going to have to do something like that, as someone who's done a lot of running, as someone who's done a lot of these obstacle course races, if I didn't have the right shoes while I'm out there, I'm out, because your feet, you need your feet. It's the most important thing when you need to get from point A to point B. So if you're having trouble with that, then I fully understand it. And another thing, I want to backtrack to sort of the beginning of this challenge, with TJ, welcoming them to the challenge and then saying, Jimmy, are you okay? And you can just see that TJ wants these people. Yeah, he loves her and he wants these people to love him, and I just really I know we say this every single episode, but I love the dynamic between TJ and this cast.
That's the old TJ, that's you wanted to get props from TJ. You never wanted TJ to think that you were a quitter. He was like the cool teacher guy that you wanted them to be on your side and be rooting for you. And so he made a lot of friendship with these people, putting them in these terrible situations. It started to be called TJ's Final, to see if you can hack it. And so he's watched these people grow up as well. He's been part of their lives for the last 20 years as well. So it's not just a one-way sided thing that just the challengers have been doing this for the last 20 years. TJ has been around them for 20 years as well. And so he probably can sense when maybe Jemmy's going to pop off or something. He's probably like, what's going on, Jemmy? Tell me. She's like, no, I'm just getting in the zone. But he knows her, for years.
100%. Now, the other thing I wanted to touch on here as well, before we get into the second part, I guess the third part of the challenge, because the first one was pretty one-sided. I feel like all the teams did pretty well except Yes's team, which was quite a big surprise because they had the math equations that they had to do and then get the words, and then Big Easy, being quite onto it, just unscrambles the word before it's even completed, so they get this massive head start. I guess we can sort of touch on who was in the team. So the Copper team had Big Easy, Katie, Ruthie, Darrell, Anissa, and Mark, and that was the team that got away from that first checkpoint the earliest. Then you also had in the gold team Kendall, Derek, Yesella, Laterian, Kellyanne, and now Maya. In that team, Yesella was the one who was struggling when they were going up the hill, similar to how Anissa was struggling. It was the two people you kind of thought probably would struggle in any kind of an endurance type of challenge. And then in the silver team, the one that got away last, they had Cyrus, Yes, Janae, Beth, and Alton. And a lot of this blame in this specific episode was put on Alton for them not being able to get up. And obviously Cyrus ends up taking a real, he's got a real problem with Alton not being able to be there. And he thought Alton was almost sabotaging him in some way, which to me was crazy to think because Alton's at risk in this episode as well. I mean, there's no way he would have wanted to sabotage Cyrus. And it does sound like they do have a friendship or they've known each other outside of this game as well. It's one of the reasons that Alton didn't want to go up against Cyrus in the elimination. But you've also got to look at the silver team was behind from the start. So for them to come from that position to actually catch up, I don't think any of the people in that silver team ended up catching up with the teams in front of them in any case by the end of it.
Well, I think Jemmy said that she came in third in the end.
Okay.
She was third girl. So I guess she came in, it would have been Kendall, Kellyanne, then I think that Jemmy was next. If that's what I think that's what she said. She was the third girl to go through. So she was able to catch up enough to not be that out of it. And so she was kind of supporting the fact that hey, we don't need to fully blame Alton here. Yes, it was harder for us to get to the next checkpoint, but there was still two other phases that needed to have been completed that everybody else was able to complete. And, spoiler alert, Cyrus and Beth were not able to complete the second checkpoint where they had to break into pairs and figure out, they had to do these kind of, it wasn't a puzzle. It was basically just recreate, like a memory puzzle. But they didn't finish that. And then they didn't finish the final run solo. So to blame everything on Alton, I was just kind of this is what I really thought. Okay, this might be a hot take. Tell me what you think. I felt that he knew that most likely he was going to lose in the elimination against anybody because of his ankle. So I think that he found a reason in Alton to go against him that will be honorable. So if he goes out, he still goes out kind of legendary. He goes out with a champ. He was going up against somebody that was really a fierce competitor rather than him potentially lose and go out with somebody that wasn't necessarily as respected as a physical specimen.
Yeah, no, I see that, and I've got another tidbit that I want to add on that hot take. I looked at Mark and Laterian talking to Cyrus throughout this episode, and I felt like they were those boys who typically when you go out there, you've always got those boys that gaslight you, and they're just like, you can do it, just go for it. And it was really in their best interest for Cyrus to go up against Elton, because if for any reason Elton loses, then Mark and Laterian has got an easier way to the end. So I do feel like they're his boys, but I also feel like they kind of set him up here.
Well, I think someone else even said that, like, why are they trying to make him go against Elton? Elton's going to beat him. And so a few people were even mentioning, like, I don't know if I want to do what's best for him and make this decision for him, because Elton isn't the best decision for him. Big Easy was the other person that was kind of being considered to go up against Cyrus. And he might have been able to beat Big Easy, because Big Easy is pretty big. And I don't know if he would have been able to climb those slats or flats, whatever they were, 5 times. Like, I think that would have been too hard for him. So,
yeah, well, if I was Big Easy, I'd go down there, I'd get Kellyanne, I would throw her over, and then just hit my way through every single time, and you'd probably be all right.
I guess, yeah, she could go over. That's true. That's true. That's
what I love about the twist. So we'll talk about the twist at the end, because I've got thoughts on that, about where that's going to lead for the future. But I do want to touch on something else here in this challenge. So in this challenge, you've got Laterian, who chooses Kendall, and he says that Kendall is an absolute beast and he's not sleeping on her. Someone that does yoga for 8 hours a day. I don't think she's actually doing it for that much, but you see her doing it in the morning. She's probably doing it at the evenings. And you can just see, like, I really think that Kendall she was a bit of a sleeper coming into the season. I was gutted when you got her in the draft, because I really wanted her, but I wanted Kellyanne that little bit more, and then she would have been my second choice. I think you got a steal there with her as your second girl in the draft.
Well, I would have taken Kellyanne next if she had come back around. So it's kind of like we were either going to get one or the other. I don't think that either of them would have been able to get around for any of us to get both of them. And so Kendall, though, I was worried about Kendall because of, like, we saw how she was going in the first episode, where her head wasn't really in the game. And then you were scaring me about someone be blonde quitting. And I'm like, she might quit. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, is she the quitter? And so I was worried about her. But now, especially because we have a few confessionals of Kellyanne being pissed that Kendall's been leaving before her and she's been doing better than she has. And Kellyanne's not liking that. If they're going to be kind of at equal, she wants to be just a little bit better there. And so I wonder if they're going to be a head-to-head matchup between the two of them that they're kind of giving us a little snippet of from now.
100%. I'm calling the shot right now. I think that they're setting it up for a Kellyanne versus Kendall battle to come, because there's a lot of very savvy players and savage players in this game, in the likes of Anissa, Jimmy, Gisela. These people are not going to want to go against Kendall, and they're going to think to themselves, who can take Kendall out? And I think Kellyanne's going to be that person. And I could be completely off and wrong about this, but I feel like Kellyanne will beat Kendall. And I think that, we're being told that she's not there yet because Kendall is better, but I think the story is she's going to go in there and actually beat her. And I think why that's the case is because Kellyanne's got a lot more experience in doing the challenge and going down in those situations. But I do think it'll be a fierce battle, depending on what type of battle it is, because if it's something physical, I do think Kellyanne definitely beats her in that. But I think that they're pretty well balanced across the board. So I'm looking forward to that type of matchup.
It's going to come for sure, for sure. I've been going down the nostalgia lane and I've been watching old seasons. So I just watched The Island, and it was one of the first seasons where Kellyanne was on and she won, and people just thought she was a layup, and they were just throwing her in and they didn't care about her being there, but she beat all these major players. So she is able to really get focused and win in certain situations. So I would put money on Kellyanne as well if it was a matchup between the two of them. I just think that her mindset is more so in the game. She has a winner's mindset more than Kendall, I think.
No, 100%. And let's not sleep on Laterian either here. Laterian wins his first challenge, and I think he said 18 years or something like that. So he's super stoked about that. I looked at Laterian again this time and I thought to myself, we had one of I forgot his name, I think Speaking the Truth on here the other day, saying that Laterian could potentially even beat Mark if it came down to a hall brawl. And I've got to say, Laterian is looking better and better by the day. I did not expect him to come into the season and do as well as he did based off the things that I heard. I obviously never saw him in any of his previous seasons, but, he's doing extremely well at this stage.
He is. And I don't know if you noticed did you watch the previews for for the rest of the season? Because
I did, but it's like in and out of my head. So if you mention it, it'll probably bring me back to it.
Okay. My question is it Laterrian that's canoodling with Anissa? Because there was a scene with a man that looks like it's Laterrian, that looks like they might be making out a little bit. So I'm wondering if this is a real thing, or maybe it's a little bit of political game that's happening, because Anissa, she's under the radar. People don't really know how much she's like playing the game, but she's always thinking and putting herself in the best situations as she can to advance further. So I'm wondering what's going on there. So I'm excited to see how that unfolds for sure.
Now that you mentioned it, I did see it. I do think it is. It's definitely Laterrian. Like, I mean, who else could it be? It's not going to be Darrell. It's not going to be Darrell. Like, so I mean, it's going to be. I think it's Laterrian. Elton's taken now. Maya's taken at this stage. I really think it's going to be him, and I'm all for it. I think it's going to be interesting. And Laterrian's just getting the right amount of airtime. They're still keeping him on there, giving him a confessional every single episode. So I feel like we could see him for quite a while still in this season before, he has an exit, if he does have an exit. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention here is, you see obviously Laterrian, you see Kendall, they're the first two that finishes as a pair, the first man and woman to finish. Derek overall was second, and then Kellyanne also came in there. One of the things I found quite funny, and I thought you would probably love that, was when Derek shouted to Kendall, "Road Rules isn't dead," when she came over. So you could see that's still there, the loyalty.
I mean, have you seen any season of Road Rules? Any?
No, I haven't.
Okay,
no.
Come on. You gotta watch it. Like, you would love Road Rules, I think. Do you know what the concept is, though? Like, basically, there's 6 people living on an RV doing challenges for a handsome reward. And so it's so fun. And like, it's just, I was always team Road Rules over team The Real World. Hello, Andrea. Or Andre. Yeah, it's really, really exciting to watch, and go back and see them. You're going to see some of your favorites, or people that you didn't know were going to be your favorites, because they're just badasses. They're better. Road Rules is better than Real World competitors for sure. Just saying.
No, listen, it's all on my list of things to go back and watch. The problem that I have at the moment, Chantel, is I've got a full-time job. And it's so bloody time consuming at the moment that I'm struggling to go back and actually watch a lot of the shows. Like, I mean, this weekend alone, I'm doing 5 podcasts, so like preparing for 5 I know, but you do it full time, so don't give me that.
I'm just
it's really tough.
I'm just teasing you. But like, I at least maybe just do like 1 episode every couple days, or 1 season. Cause like, it would honestly take you like 3 hours to do a season, because they're 20 minutes long.
Oh yes, I forgot. That's really short. Like, I mean, I did watch some of the older seasons for the challenge on Netflix, which I noticed there's only like 20 minutes. So you actually do go through them pretty quickly. It's not as time consuming. So I'll definitely get into that. Did you share the links with me for Road Rules? Like, I need to get that from you at some stage.
Oh, okay. I had some links for that, but they're all dead now. Okay. So I have all of the challenge like on my computer, that I could give you like seasons. I don't have Road Rules and Real World yet, but I'm gonna look and see if I can find full season links for those or something.
So we've got here that Andrea saying that I love that some of the biggest surprises this season are road rulers who haven't done a show in decades, like Kendall, Laterrian, Yes, and Yesella. And I agree with her, Andrea. Like, I am absolutely loving Kendall at this stage. I think that she is an absolute beast in the show. Laterrian, again, as well. Like, just, I came into this season not knowing how Laterrian was going to do. And I only heard that he was someone that failed and he had popcorn muscles and all this kind of thing, but he's really impressed me so far. And I love Yes as well. Like, Yes, obviously he didn't do too well in this math challenge this time around, but it could also be that his team members just didn't coordinate with him that well, and they might not have listened to direction, so it's hard to know. And then Yesella has been a great narrator this season. I've absolutely loved Yesella as a narrator.
Well, I also have to say that, like, so back in the day, The only show that I submitted to that I wanted to be a part of was Road Rules. So I actually applied to be on Road Rules, and like I made it like I had this little like lunchbox that had like different like hold all these maps on it, and I put all these different trinkets of like places I was going to be visiting on Road Rules. And I just did my whole application me on a Road Rules tour, and like with like a VHS tape that I sent with. But like it was the show that I wanted to be on because I thought it was so badass and amazing. And so if you're a challenge fan, I think that you will enjoy Road Rules more than you would enjoy the real world.
Okay, yeah. So because we spoke about the real world, and
well, the season,
I'll give both a go. Yeah,
the first Las Vegas is the one that I was suggesting, just because you'd see kind of the relationships, like the Alton, even and Arissa, Trishelle. You'd have seen how all that went down and why they were so popular and so famous at the time. And so I just thought, just for history, like, you know, just knowing what's going on there would be oh, look at you. Andrea loves your accent. I don't know if it's like, I have a friend that's named Andrea, but I guess it's also how you spell Andre. So I don't know if I use it Andrea. But yeah, I think that you'll enjoy Road Rules more, but I think that you should see the season of The Real World, the first Las Vegas. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Now we go into this pre-nomination phase because obviously we see here that Cyrus and Beth is not going to finish the challenge, and they're going to be the last ones there. They timed out, which is, you know, sad to see. We'd love to see everybody finish, but I understand why they end up calling it quits, because otherwise they might have still been out there. Like Jimmy said, they would have had to call a search party to go out there and look for them. Jimmy's been on point this whole season. Like, she's another person that coming into this season, I didn't have her rated that high in my expectations of what she would do based on past performances, but she's physically fit. She looked good in the show. Like, I mean, if she got third, that's not bad from going as the last team going into that third challenge. And also the fact that, you know, she's carrying the show. Like, her and Nehemiah, I still think are the people to look out for long-term in the show. That's going to be there for quite a long time, because if this was a classic Survivor type of show and you had an edit around it, like, I would say Nehemiah and Jimmy is getting like a winner's edit. That alliance is getting a winner's edit for me.
Are they? I don't know. I mean, this is one thing with this season, is that I'm pretty happy with anybody winning. Like, I'm not like, oh man, they don't just like any single person. Maybe not Big Easy. I don't really care for him that much. But like, even if he did win, I'd be like, you know what? Go, good for you, Big Easy. And so, but I don't know if I see them winning yet. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'll be happy if it happens, but I'm not sure if I see that yet.
Otherwise, they're going to be like, we're going to look at it and we're going to be like, oh man, these guys were robbed, because, you know, we're the whole show at the moment, we're getting it through their eyes, through their lens. You know, like, they're telling us all the strategy, how they see it. You know, Jimmy is probably the person who, again, is probably the biggest narrator of the season, with Yasela being a close second. And then if you look at someone like Nehemiah, even in this conversation here where Cyrus is so annoyed by Alton because he thinks Alton sabotaged him, Nehemiah is the one that's saying, like, listen, I'm in a conflicted place because I'm not going to vote against either one of these two. I'm friends with both of them, but I also don't want Cyrus to go home. Like, it's in my best interest for Alton and Cyrus to go up against each other, because he could potentially take a threat out for me, but I think that he will go home. So he's the one who said that when you sort of mentioned that earlier. And I think that his read is accurate, because the whole time, you know, we hear a lot about Cyrus. We hear about the fact that, you know, he's old school in his mentality. If he goes up to the basketball court, you know, he'll take on the person who's the tallest and the biggest and the baddest person out there. And I love that attitude about him. And like you said, maybe it is because he thought to himself, if he was going to lose, he wants to make it memorable against someone that is really good, so he has another shot at coming back. And we also, for the first time this season here, that TJ says at the end, I think we'll see you again. And he hasn't said that prior to this, and maybe he did say it every single time and they cut it in and out, but they sort of wanted to see how the show was doing first, so they knew if there was going to be a second season, because that's a really positive thing to hear, that he's thinking that they'll be back, because that to me says All-Star Season 2.
That 100%, I got that vibe. I was like, I think that TJ's just having so much fun that, like, there has to be another season. Yeah, do you know what? You're right, Andrea. Everyone is getting a moment to shine. It is hard to pick the winner off the edit so far. Yeah, like, it's like I'm enjoying everybody. I like seeing their arc. obviously it's not surprising who goes home just from like how they've been presenting the episodes, but I can really make a case for almost anybody depending on the episode. You know what I mean? So, and
Yeah.
I am thrilled though that it looks like there'll be other seasons, because like going back and watching the old ones, watching this one has just been so fun, and it's just easy. I don't know, maybe like Fessy on the new season, it's just I'm always like so like angry that like this one I'm just happy.
Yeah, so Andrea, that's a good point. So I sort of stalked a few of the players. I think it was Johnny Bananas and Mark Long that were on a Instagram live last week where they were talking about, Mark said when they were out there, people were just having fun. No one cared about how that would affect their social media going out. And it's one of the things that, when I first started watching reality TV, like I come from the Survivor background, that's how I got into reality TV. I always wanted to play, but now I'm actually really scared of getting out there. Sometimes it gets in my head, and I'm like, if I was ever to play the game, like, people can really make or break you out there. You might want to go out there to play up a villain, for instance, but it could actually affect your ability to get a job in the future, just based on what's going on in social media. Social media can be pretty brutal. So I don't blame people if they go out there and they're a little bit scared of how they're going to be perceived on social media. Fessy just didn't get the memo this season, though.
Oh my gosh. Did you watch any of the reunion? Oh my goodness. It was all about him. I was just like, oh. Like,
I was surprised that his big head still fits into his turtleneck.
Right. Man, I don't want to see him anymore.
Yeah, so I agree. I think that it's refreshing. A lot of these people didn't really do this in the era of social media, and this is a great opportunity for them to get a following as well. And it just seems, I don't know, they just seem like good people all around. Like, I mean, people you'd like want to hang around. And like myself and Chantal have said a few times, there's definitely, I don't think all of the people who play the current challenge is bad, but there's a few people I just wouldn't be able to relate to if I was out on the show, to be honest with you. I don't want to move into the nomination phase here. So Mark goes into the nominations and he says that he's known Cyrus for 20 years. He's going to deliver the message that Cyrus wants Elton. We see a lot of voting here. Big Easy's really happy about the fact that it's not going to be him going in, so he'll vote for anyone. And Elton tries to make the case that Big Easy was the second last person when it came to the men in the challenge. So he thought that, this is the best person to put in there against Cyrus, for Cyrus's own sake as well, because even Elton doesn't really want Cyrus to go home. Like, I feel like Cyrus was really conflicted about the fact that, or not Cyrus, Elton was really conflicted about the fact that Cyrus wanted to take him on in this challenge. But ultimately we see that people are going to honor whoever the person is it's still up until this point in any case, they're going to honor whoever that person wants to go in. Do you think that's a trend that's going to continue throughout the season?
I think when it's convenient, I think that it will be honored. But I think when it's like, it's a Mark, or if it's Derek, or if it's anybody that will be like, no, this is not my time. Like they might put some pushback. I don't think that it will be honored then. So it will really depend on the person, how many people that they have on their side, how popular they are within, the people on the show. And that will determine. Like Elton, he's connected a little bit, but like not as heavily connected as some of the other people. So he couldn't really fight that. Like if Mark says that that's what's happening, it's pretty much what's happening, because Mark's kind of in alignment with kind of everybody. So yeah, I think it just depends on who is being called out, if they can agree upon that person.
Now, Derek and Easy burn their votes on each other, and was quite random. The rest of them all actually took a stance here. Do you think that this was pre-planned by those two? I feel like they spoke prior to going into this thing. It seemed like it was planned.
Yeah, I probably planned, because you never really want to burn a vote, but they probably both just didn't want to. They didn't want to vote for Elton just in case Elton came back, and then it looks bad, and because they don't want maybe Elton now to have like, oh, like you guys all voted for me and wanted me out, like I can take any one of you now, like if I'm ever down there, like I don't feel bad about calling your name. So I think they just wanted to avoid calling someone's name that was going to come back, and then they probably felt that they couldn't do that to Cyrus, so they just burned their votes. Nobody likes a burn vote, though. Nobody likes a burn vote, especially not Jemmy. I'm surprised she didn't say anything about it.
Yeah, I'm surprised no one's calling Derek on his shit at this point because, to be honest with you, Derek is playing a really savvy social game at this stage, and we'll get into that a little bit more as we continue through the recap for this episode. But the big talking point, after this is that Elton goes back from the nominations, and Laterian wants to talk to him, or not Laterian, sorry, Cyrus wants to talk to him, shake his hand, make sure that he's all good to go into the challenge, and Elton just flat out ignores him and walks past him, which really annoys Laterian and some of the people sitting around there. I feel like Elton might be going in a lot this season. We might see that storyline happening potentially here because he might be rubbing people the wrong way, unless, like you said, it's not convenient for the person who's going up against Elton.
See, okay, yes, it was super rude and like kind of unsportsmanshiply, but like I think Elton was still pissed. Like the fact that like it shows where he sits with everybody in the house, that like they're willing to throw him in. So I think he was too pissed off for him to be like, props, like we'll see you in the, like, just to get that whole sportsman's thing. Like I just think he wasn't ready. He needed a little bit of time to cool off. I don't think, though, that people are going to want to challenge him that quickly, though. So, yeah, he gassed out on running that thing. So you might want to have someone that's going to gas out running that final because, like, that you could probably overtake and beat them. And you might not be able to overtake and beat them in an elimination because a lot of those eliminations are going to be to his strengths. So I don't think that he's going to be in that much trouble. And especially if he doesn't care about calling anybody out because they all kind of backstabbed him already. I think that they're going to keep him out of elimination. Too scary.
No, I agree with you. And listen, if I was Elton, I probably would have reacted exactly the same, especially if you kind of feel like, I feel like there's this unspoken rule between Cyrus, Elton, and Nehemiah that they shouldn't be targeting each other. Again, I think that those guys all should work together towards a common goal. And I feel like we've seen this in reality TV quite a lot of the times recently where, when there's people of color that actually play the show, there's always not a lack of representation sometimes on these shows that people will try and look out for each other as long as they can. Like if you look, throw Big Brother back here, if you look at Davon, Bailey, and how they try to work with, was it David? David, yes, that's the name, who couldn't play the game. They try to work with him so hard it didn't work. So I feel like there's this unspoken rule that probably that would have been in Elton's back of his head as well, just thinking, why, of everybody that you could have targeted on the show, are you targeting me when we're all trying to get here? There's a common goal for us to try and get to the end, and I appreciate that. So I think there's a lot more going on there than what was shown or can be explained on the show properly.
No, I mean, I totally understand that. Like, I was playing an online reality game, and there's only one other woman of color that was playing, and we both were coming in as previous winners. And, like, I thought we had an unspoken bond that we were supposed to, like, go to the end together and try to do anything that we could to get both of us to the end together. I'm like, there's no way that they're going to let two Black women win a second time in an all-star season. Like, there's no way. And so I just thought that she was going to stick by me no matter what, and she turned her back on me. And I was like, wow, like it was really, I really didn't appreciate that or like that she was willing to. There was still so many other people that she could have targeted and so many other people that she could have lied to, and she didn't have to be saying to me like, yes, and you to the end all the time, and then go back on it, especially since that was our common bond, and that's what we're moving towards. So if they came in with that common bond, I would be right pissed that, like, oh my God, I didn't even think that I had to worry about you coming against me. Like, I thought I had to worry about all the other people that would be throwing me in, not somebody that I thought that we have gone through the same life struggles and that we want to maybe see us get to the end together. So yes, I did love that. I love Elton and Gisela.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the next part we wanted to talk about is, we see here that Elton and Gisela is bonding in the room together, and Elton is saying to her that I am tired of playing nice with these people, and he just wants to, I think that that's the other thing as well. As you get older in life, like I even find myself like I take so much less bullshit in my life now, like when I'm in my 30s than what I did when I was in my 20s. Like, I feel like, when you're in your 40s and your 50s, as you get older, you just don't really want to be fake with people. Like, you want to be real, you want to be who you are. And if people are being fake to you, you just don't want to bond with them. It's probably not the best game strategy. You like when you're out there, and it is a bit of a social game as well as the challenge aspect of the game. But, I do respect that. And we see Elton and Gisela here talking, and Elton asking her how she feels about him, and she says that, I shouldn't be liking you, but I do like you. And you can just see that something's developing there between these two. And we do know that they are together now after the show still. So do you ship this relationship, Chantel?
Oh, super ship. Super ship. Super ship. I stand. Like, especially because you can see, like, when he's with her, and like it's like he's smiling. He can't even smile any bigger. That's how much he's smiling when he's hanging around her. And like, there's not a lot of people that can make you feel that great all the time. And so there's a special relationship that's going on, like, that we're witnessing, because like, just how they feel and how they're acting around each other, like, it's one in a million. So I definitely shift the relationship. I do think that they found something special with each other.
Yeah, and I mean, I love the fact that they, had to come back to play this game after so many years to actually find each other again, because they played the show before, like Andrea's saying here in the Gauntlet 2, and she didn't even remember who he was, and now they are finding each other again here, and they're falling in love, and we're seeing it happen on TV. I love it. I think that they're great together, and it's what the challenge is about. You get these relationships, but this one looks like a genuine relationship. It doesn't look like just a showmance or a hookup for the sake of politicking. Like, I feel like the Nehemiah Jimmy is a little bit more like that, and I feel like both Jimmy and Nehemiah know that it is. Like, I don't feel like any of them are under any illusion that this is going to be a long-term thing between the two of them. Now, at the elimination, we have Cyrus going down because obviously he was last. We find out, that obviously the vote was against Elton, and Elton is going to go down. And then the bomb of all bombs drop on us. And Gemma, earlier in the episode, she kind of alluded to the fact that when TJ's being very vague with his words, you should always be careful because something's going to happen. And again, she was right, because we find out that the other person, the woman that was the slowest as well, she will also go down into the elimination. And that now the person who got voted in can select someone to come down and help them out. And I think this is a massive game changer now. And my suspicion is that if you're someone from the opposite sex, if you're playing this game smart, if you're someone from the opposite sex, you're going to go and vote in the baddest person every single time now. Because I would rather have Derek call me down to be his partner, or I would rather have an Elton call me down to be his partner than have a Big Easy go down and then me as Kellyanne get called in to go and help Big Easy out. Like, I feel like this changes the complete dynamic of how the strategy is going to be played for the rest of the game. And you know what? All the lack of creativity that they've had in all of these recent seasons of the challenge, they've taken all of that, thrown it away, and they're like, okay, we're going to bring out the big guns for the challenge, and we're going to bring in some really creative and fun twists. This, to me, is a really creative and a fun twist that I am completely here for.
Well, and what's really great about this twist too is that it's going to make these people are all gamers, more so than, we'll say, how people have been strategizing in the current season. And they're going to be like, okay, whoa. We need to put people down there who is not going to want me to help them stay. And so, just like you're saying, it's going to be definitely a different strategy on who is going to be voted in by the group. So this whole, like, we're talking about them having, like, whoever they want to call on, whoever loses gets to decide who they're calling on. I think that's out the window for sure now with this twist, because it's like, wait, if he's calling me, okay, and that's going to be Big Easy that he's calling. Like, I don't want Big Easy to go down there. Like, no, you're totally right. It's going to change up the strategy. It's going to be really interesting. People are going to be scrambling.
Now, Andrea has got a really good point here. She has said that, she feels like it's a bit BS how these twists are affecting the ladies only at the moment in the show. Because, if you look at this, they didn't let people know. Like, again, Andrea, I hear what you're saying. I think it wouldn't have been as great of a TV moment if they told them at the nominations that this was going to happen. But I definitely hear the fact that, obviously they weren't aware that one of them were going to get called down to go and help whoever was voted in prior to it. So I fully appreciate that. I hear it as probably a little bit of, is it fair? It's not fair. Is it good TV? I feel like whenever you don't let the cast fully know what's going to happen, that's a good thing. But I hear you, because, even in the previous season of the challenge, if we go back to when CT and was it CT and West got called in the first elimination, and then suddenly we heard, oh no, CT and West is not going up against each other today, and the whole reason that they voted CT and West to go down there was to take each other on. No, it's the ladies who are going to now go up against each other, and it ended up being Millionaire Ashley versus Natalie, and Natalie ended up winning that one. That was another situation that I felt was unfair towards women, and if I have to be honest, I do think that this show does favor the men. Like, I don't think that there's any debate in that in general, if they could save a really good male competitor versus a female competitor, they probably will always take that route. Is it the right thing? 100% no. It should be fair. They should look at that and say, listen, we're going to be fair about it. If one season we disadvantage the women in the game, then maybe next season we should disadvantage the men or something like that. So I fully appreciate it. I think it was a good TV moment, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I totally do see that they more so favor the men. All like their big heavy hitters have always been males. When they, we have back in the day we had Kenny and Evan, and then that's taken over by Johnny Bananas and Wes and CT. Like, these are all men that have been carrying the show for a really long time, and they know what they can get from them. So I just don't think that, they have big paychecks that they have to pay them to come out to play. So them going home in the first episode, they're probably like, we paid too them to come here. We need to have them. They're the draws. They're the people that both men and women watch the show for. Not all the women do the men that are their fans of the show come and watch for. Like, maybe Millionaire Ashley a little bit, but I don't know if the fandom is as big as it is for all those guys. So yeah, it sucks, but I think it's all about money, who they're paying, and who the viewers are really, really enjoying.
Yeah, I think in my experience of watching the show, and I've only watched from Fresh Meats 2 till recent. I've seen some of the older seasons as well, but those are like the ones that I consistently watch throughout it. And I feel like the closest thing that they had to a female person that became that big was Cara Maria, because she was there for so many seasons. She was for a long time. Even if you go on Paramount Plus now, you'll see Johnny Bananas and Cara Maria as the thumbnail of the challenge on there. So I feel like they really pushed her to be that big person for the females. And I mean, you've got to give Cara Maria credit for being the only female, as far as I remember. Actually, no, Jenny as well. Jenny West now as well. Jenny West and Cara Maria are the only ones that outright actually beat every person out there, like even the men. Like, and that should be respected, because it's not easy to do. Men and women are both physically different. There's a reason why men and women don't compete against each other in most sports. Like, I mean, if you had to see like Jenny West go up against any of the men in a hall brawl, it would not be good. You know what I mean? Like, so there's a reason for that. So you've got to, and I'm a true blue Coral fan, and that would sort of relate to you, Chantal. I don't know who Coral is.
I love Coral. Okay, Coral was you. I can't remember which real world she started, but she's like super old school. And you know who Evan is, correct?
Yes.
So Coral was the vet that picked Evan on Fresh Meat 1, and they were just like dominating all the competitions. They were so good. And so that's where probably people really started to like Coral, because like her partnership with Evan, like, it was so good. She also had a huge fight with The Miz over racial issues as well. So that's something that she's quite famous for. So she has a sharp tongue. She's decent in competition. She's definitely good entertainment. I stand Coral. Like, she's definitely one of my favorite female the challenge competitors.
I've heard her name many a time, so I will look out for that. I promise you guys, I'm going to go back. I'm going to watch all of this, because I love the challenge. Like, I became a massive fan when Final Reckoning was playing. I came to the challenge because of Big Brother, so like, I know a lot of people don't like Big Brother players, but I mean, it brings new fans to the show, and it's going to keep the show on the air for that much longer. And listen, you guys are getting the worst of the Big Brother players. Like, there's some really good players. Like, I blame casting for not casting the right people to go onto the show, really. I mean, even this season, they let go of, for season 37, they let go of the person who was in The Circle US the first season, when The Circle is probably the biggest show at the moment on TV when it comes to reality TV. I feel like they should have probably brought him in. Were you aware of this being on it?
Yeah, I heard that Ed was supposed to be on it. I don't know why everybody has been dropped at this point. I don't know if it's like, bad tweets that were subsurfaced. I know that he's from a Trump supporting family, so maybe some tweets in that direction maybe came surface that like MTV wasn't aligning with. I'm not exactly sure why Ed isn't going to be on season 37. No matter what, they've halted production. I heard that it's because somebody did test positive for COVID-19, and I heard that person's actually Big T that tested positive, which is super sucky because she has been removed from season 37. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen now, because if people are going to have to quarantine for 2 weeks before they can restart filming again, people like Amanda might not be able to get that much time off with like her child and stuff like that. And so I don't know how things are going to reshake out, but I heard that Ed is not on it anymore.
So in really short, and I don't want to go too much into this because I want to finish off the rest of this episode, I think that them going into quarantine for 2 weeks potentially could make for a better season, because I'm going to put a hot take out there. I think what it's going to do is the timeline will still remain the same. They will still finish the season where they were planning to finish it. There will be a little bit less episodes, more quality versus quantity, and we'll see something like a purge come into the season, or a very creative twist like we've just seen with more than one player having to go down there. Because the other thing that I realized when I watched this again is that I have missed the duo eliminations. I've missed seeing two people having to go in there, because can you imagine? Like, that's exactly what they have to do to Fessy next season. Bring the same twist in and bring like a duo aspect into it, because he can't work with people to save himself.
Oh my God. I know. I can't wait. Like, that would be amazing. Like, this is what I've like been trying to dream board, manifest. Like, I want this to happen. But we're going to in Ashley's manifestation book is that I want them to have on every single daily next season an eating a gross food challenge. I want them to do like, there'd be no hall brawl at all for season 37. No pole wrestling at all. Like, there's no one-on-one combat, because I've been watching these old seasons and they make these challengers do the most ridiculous things. Like, I don't know if you've seen the season where they had them in like these Mexican blankets where they're like had to like roll in the sand. Like, they make them do ridiculous things. Usually it's not this like stand up, I'm a muscle man, American Ninja Warrior, D1 football play. Like, it was none of that at one point. Like, people were still really good competitors, but it was that some of it was a little bit silly, and you had to not take yourself too seriously. And he takes himself so seriously that I hope that the producers take advantage of this and put him in situations where he really doesn't want to have to do it.
Yeah, I know, and I really think that the producers are seeing gold with him now, because they know people want to see him fail. So I'm pretty sure they're going to tap into that, because they tapped into that with Joss. You know, like, they made Joss look a lot worse than what probably, like, he's probably not that great, but I feel like they really hyped up his worst aspects in the challenges when he was like throwing the ball, making him look really bad. You know, there's people who spoke in the after show that said that in the beginning he was throwing the ball at the wrong tiles that were never supposed to break, so it made it look like he was really weak and the ball didn't go through there. So in any case, I love it. I'm here for it. I want to get back to this season, close off the rest of this episode. So, you know, I think the choice here for Elton to call down Anissa, what a masterstroke. When you look at the challenge, right? You see that the challenge is going to be these massive boulders that they're going to have to pull. You don't know that someone's going to have to climb over it, but you know that they potentially could, because it looks similar to the one that Beth was going to be in, and they kind of reused that challenge, but with a different creative twist to it. If I looked at that challenge from the start, I would have been like, I need someone that's an absolute beast, someone that's good at eliminations, someone that's physically strong that can pull these things. I think his choice of choosing Anissa was a masterstroke here, and I felt it was so heartwarming to see Anissa go down there and get emotional about the fact that Elton wanted her when she's just played in a whole season when no one wanted her. And I really loved seeing that.
Yes, it did. It was really touching. Like, in the beginning when she first was called, she's like, oh, like, she really didn't want, nobody wants to be called. Everybody's like not making eye contact. They're just like, please don't call me down. I don't feel like competing right now. But when she finally got down and they had that confessional when he was like, she's a beast. I've known her for so long. I want her beside me. I know that she'd ride for me. Like, he put so much trust in his game, in her hands. And I loved her reaction, and especially like from like what you're saying right now is like she was so not appreciated, and like she was basically the #1 draft pick here for Elton to get this challenge done, and it must have made her feel good. And they smashed it, no pun intended. Like I think that they did a really good job. They made it look pretty easy. They just kind of just did it. Like there was no challenge there for them, it seemed.
100%. I mean, Elton is amazing at climbing, like we saw early in the episode with him climbing the bloody pillar of the house when there's like nowhere to grab onto. You should just, whenever they cast for the next Spider-Man, if they cast for Miles Morales to go, Miles Morales being the black Spider-Man, if they ever cast for that, just get Elton in there. He could play like an older Miles Morales in the Marvel universe. I'm putting it out there. I hope that Disney and Marvel is watching, Paramount Plus. And the challenge All-Stars, because it's pretty impressive, but he goes into this challenge, beasts it out with the help of Anissa. Obviously, Cyrus is going to struggle throughout this. Beth being down there, not a person that potentially could climb over those walls to help and compensate for the fact that Cyrus has got a bum ankle that he had when he went into the show, and she tried to help him to get over, but I mean, physically it just didn't work. And that's why I love these duo eliminations, because you're going to have to complement each other, in these challenges to be able to win it. And like I said, at the end there, TJ does say, we probably will see you in the future, which is really positive. Did you have any final thoughts on the challenge itself before we go into our draft pick to see what's happened on that front?
Well, I also loved how TJ like is recognizing Anissa, and like she's 11 for 11. So like that's pretty damn good. Like she's won 11 of these and she's lost 11, but like that's pretty like 50-50. Like that's scary, I think, these games. Yeah. So I wouldn't want to go up against Anissa, but I'm worried that she might be called down often because she is a champion in the elimination battles. So who else do you think is going to be potentially called upon all the time? Like maybe Kendall, because she doesn't have that many friends, and she
Let me touch on the elimination record first before I tell you what I think about who's going to get called down. The elimination record is an interesting one because TJ calling this actual elimination record out there and saying that this counts is very interesting, because does that mean whoever wins the Challenge All-Stars has a legitimate championship title even in the challenge proper? And also, does that mean that the champions versus stars should count as well? Because in that case, Darrell's got 2 more wins, doesn't he? And on that one, he should be a 6-time winner. If we're starting to call these spin-off shows, if we all bring them all together, then I feel like you should recognize championships in any of the spin-offs as well as the actual challenge.
But weren't they playing for charity on Chance versus Stars?
I believe they were, yes. But I mean, at the end of the day,
I would take the difference would be is that like they weren't winning for themselves, and so that's how I could make sense of them keeping All-Stars as part of the challenge universe, because it's people that you've seen on the challenge as well. And Chance versus Stars, I think it's its own entity because they're playing for charity. I think it's a little bit different.
Yep, we agree with you, Andrea, 100%. I think we touched on that. It's great to see that she's appreciated in this season. Now, we want to finish off by having a quick look here at our draft. We have got both your players going home this week. So we've got Cyrus and Beth that is out there. So we're back to a draw. Like I was just getting nervous. I was like, Chantal is absolutely, showing me up here in the podcast, and it is going to be a tight race moving here for the rest of the show. Now, you asked me, who do I think is in most danger of going down quite a lot? I agree with you. Anissa, who's in my team, she's potentially someone that I can see go down quite a lot because people would want her to be their partner, potentially. I don't know if she's going to get called down outright. I think that if it comes down to who is a player that potentially could finish last in my team for the females going into next week and could potentially be in danger, I would put Janae in that category as someone that potentially could be in danger, as someone that could finish last and go into the elimination automatically. If I had to look at the men going into next week, who of the men do I think potentially could get called down to help a female down there next week if there's someone in there, then I would think in my team you probably have either a Nehemiah or a Derek that might be quite appealing, or Mark, to be honest. But I feel like people are going to – I've just got this feeling people are going to leave the Godfather alone for a while still in this game. They just have too much respect for him to go down too early. So my money is on – based on the edit, my money is on Nehemiah. I feel like Nehemiah has just been such a dominant force that like in the edit, that I feel like he's going to go down a few times. Like I feel like he's going to be a big character throughout. Could be wrong, but that's kind of my calls. If you had to look at your team, Chantal, who do you think in your team is most at risk of potentially finishing last as a female? And who do you think is probably most at risk being called down to help someone else in elimination, like a man?
I think that Gisela, just because she wasn't great at the endurance portion of this challenge, this most recent daily. If it's anything that's kind of like that, like she hasn't done that well other than the first challenge. She hasn't been like in the top tier. So I can see her not necessarily doing too well. And I think if that's the case, I think that she might call her man down to help her out, right? Do you think that she'd do that and take away that opportunity maybe from him?
It's tough because she might look at it and think to herself, like, listen, Elton didn't call me down when he could have. And she might think, like, listen, I'll return the favor here and I won't call Elton down. But it could also be that Elton looks at the challenge and tells her, like, listen, Gisela, call me down because I think I can do really well in this one with you. Like, it could go either way. So I do think, regardless of who goes down in your team, I feel like two people are most at risk there of being called down to help, and that's Darrell and Elton. The funny thing with Darrell, though, is even though Darrell has won a lot of championships, he doesn't necessarily have the best, and I hope I don't offend people, I don't feel like he's necessarily got the best record in eliminations, though.
I don't think he's been in that many, and the ones that he's been in, he hasn't won. You know what I mean? So, like, it's not a good record, but he hasn't been in that many. Yeah, I don't think he has that much experience down there, but he's still played a lot of different things in the challenge, and so he's decently good at a lot. So I don't know. I don't know if they'll pull him down. Yeah,
so Andrea's saying that they released the remaining season trailer today. Now, Maya, Big Easy, Gisela, and Kendall are in an elimination. Now, if I had to go by that, Big Easy and Gisela, they're the ones that finished last. Kendall is the one that's getting voted in, and now Maya is being pulled in to go and help Kendall in that elimination, if that is the case. I feel like that kind of confirms what I said about Nehemiah being someone that may be called into an elimination to help out. And if that's the case, Nehemiah and Kendall is going to beat Big Easy and Gisela, I feel like. But could be wrong. Because before the season started, Mark Long said that the people that you are going to be most impressed by this season would be Big Easy and Gisela. And maybe he teased that they pull off an upset, So he said that people wouldn't expect them to do well coming into this season, but they're going to impress people. So I would be shocked, though, if those two people do beat Nehemiah and Kendall. Like, they should not beat them, So let's see what happens next episode. I think that could be exciting.
Yes, it could be exciting. I mean, I look forward to all of them. I'm going to go watch the after show probably in a little bit, and I'm pretty pumped about seeing more the challenge on my screen. Even though I don't feel like seeing another reunion episode, but I will watch. But I want to watch All Stars.
Like, just before we finish this as well, like, the host that they keep getting for these after shows for me just does not hit the mark. Like, and I tell you why. Like, firstly, the host seemed really stiff in this one. And then secondly, he's not a true fan. You can tell he's reading from a teleprompter. Like, why did they not get female Devon to do the after show? Because she was so great in doing all of these shows, the after shows on the YouTube MTV channel. Like, I hope that they listen to this. I know there's a petition out there for Devon Simone to do the after show for the All-Stars. So hopefully people listen to that and what the fans want, and they make her a future host, because you can't have TJ there. Have someone that at least is a fan of the show.
I agree with you, but I do have to say that, so Vernon he hosted Total Madness, and we're just like, oh my God, who is this guy? He doesn't know what's going on. I have to say, I do feel as though this season he must have watched more episodes than he has in the past, because he did go in a little bit more and go a little bit deeper, where I'm like, I want to know the next, like, ask more questions here. Like, don't just let them say one thing and finish and not go in a little bit deeper. So I do feel that he's maybe becoming more of a fan, or maybe he's watched this particular season, because last Total Madness, he didn't know a thing. At least this one, it did feel as though he kind of understood the people that were the players, and like he seemed to have one to add his 2 cents in a little bit more than just reading the teleprompter. But I do agree with you; he would be a new fan, 100%, and I would prefer, hands down, Devin to be hosting the after show here. I don't know why they need to have him.
Yeah, she would not let people get away with this shit. I can tell you that. She'll call them on it for sure as well. Now, it's been great having you guys on the show. Andrea, thanks for all the comments. We love hearing from people when they're watching the show and asking questions. I agree with you, by the way, Andrea, that a hall brawl would be really tough for Nehemiah and Kendall to go up against those two. So that's the one scenario where we might see it. Let's hope. Like, I don't want to see another hall brawl, to be honest, so let's hope it's not that. It's been great having you guys on the show. If you love this content, hit the subscribe button, click on the notification. We've just reached 600 subscribers on the channel, which is super exciting to us. We really thank everybody that subscribed to the show. We're trying to put something together for like a special event when we hit 1,000 subscribers, so I'm still working on that. Hopefully I can tease that sometime soon. We do also have a Survivor trivia competition that will be going live in about 40 minutes, which I'm hosting as well. Chantal, I hope you're ready for that.
I don't know anything. I'll be there just for fun.
Yeah, so come back in 40 minutes, go get some food. If it's late over on that side, get some drink, come and sit here, have a laugh at our expense, when we're doing this. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're planning on doing this every year at least once. I think we should get those guys to come to the challenge trivia event, and then I know Chantal, you'll be the number 1 seed.
That. No, but not necessarily. Like, so my friend Michelle, she's going to be playing tonight. She's watched many seasons of Survivor. I don't know if she's seen all of them, but she's like a reality TV fan. But she is the challenge historian. She just remembers every single deal. She's like, remember that fight when da-da-da-da-da happened in the Gauntlet 3? I'm like, no, I don't. Thank you for being here, Michelle. So Michelle, I'd have to say, would be like top tier for the challenge. Maybe by then I will be again too, because I have been doing a rewatch and I'm all like, oh, all this new information. Like, oh yeah, I remember this. I remember that. So maybe by the time we do a challenge one, I will be top tier, because I will just have rewatched everything.
Ron Bowman, is he one of your people as well?
Yes.
He's the number 1 seed going into this. So he had the most correct questions in the quickest amount of time.
I figured as much. I told you, because so my friend Phil, that I do some of the Amazing Race podcasts with and Drag Race, he hosts his own game nights on the weekend, and so he ended up having a game that was booked for tonight, so he couldn't play. So he's like, well, let's have my partner Ron play, because he knows even more about Survivor than I do. Like, they had like Survivor themed wedding, like that kind of, they're in it. So I assumed that he was going to do quite well, and yes, he's asking if he needs to wear a costume, so he's probably going to dress like a Survivor.
That's going to be awesome. I feel like I need to get a Survivor shirt as well, to be honest, to live up to what he's bringing. I wish I had one of the buffs. Guys, it's been great having you on, and we'll catch you next week, where we will be back at the normal time of 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to do the live recap of the All-Star season, episode 6. So we're getting close to the pointy end of the season. Catch you guys next time. It's been great. See you.